Up until now, all trading book reviews on this channel have been recommendations of quality pieces, but to give you a correct representation that far from all trading literature is of value, I hereby present to you a dire contrast exception. Prior to my decade-long online poker career, I studied gaming theory rather intensely for 6 years. At the beginning, in the late 1990s, way before you could order any wide selection of specified literature online, my main source of income in gaming theory and blackjack books, yes, blackjack was my initial long-term aim to go pro at, was my very generous father, being something of a book enthusiast himself, who bought piece after piece on the subject while on his regular stops in America, and being obsessed on beating the casinos at their own games, I devoured those books faster than he could buy them. In the beginning, any information on poker or casino games, naturally blackjack in particular, was of unparalleled value to me. It wasn't necessarily about the information itself, but about the magical Narnia entry into a fascinating new world that such literature would provide. For at least back in the days, most blackjack books were written with a lot of heart and character, and as a normal fictional reader gets usurped into a fantasy world of their own, so did any piece that could bring me to clean house at a blackjack table in my teenage imagination. Yet after a score books or so, as in 20, I was well in tune with the basic and intermediate strategies of the game. That's when it began to dawn on me that most books said the same things over and over. I soon realized that the main thing that set them apart was the layout and front cover picture. It struck me that any half-a-brain who had read the rules and understood some basic strategy felt seemingly compelled to reinvent the wheel and repackage the same old junk and cliches into something of their own. And today, 2 decades later, not much has changed. In my hand, I hold a subpar piece of factual literature that offers not a single word of originality, but one that rather insults the readers by assuming little to nothing of them. I bought this book, not with the anticipation of it being a masterpiece, but as a structured introduction prior to deeper Elliott Wave theory studies. For it was intended as an attempt to familiarize myself with the terminology in a quick and easy to grasp fashion before sinking my teeth deep into the rather complex world of Elliott theory. We all have our ways of doing and learning, and this to me is a way to neutralize and undramatize difficult theorems and concepts by laying and repeating a wide and solid foundation. The only problem is that not all components of a solid foundation are solid themselves. So let's take this piece apart and see what shaky ground it's built on. As the title proclaims, this is a beginner's introduction to Elliott Wave theory, yet with a subheading that reads Master Elliott Waves Techniques in less than 48 hours. Normally, I'm utterly allergic to any quick fixes or lazy hacks like this from which people can learn buzzwords and surface-level nonsense that makes them come across as more knowledgeable than they really are. Socrates in 1 hour, or any other lazy I want the credit but I don't want to put in the time and effort type of things like that. On the one hand, this book is called Elliott Waves Made Simple, but on the other hand, it advertises that you'll master them in less than 48 hours, thus automatically qualifying for the internet's version of clickbaiting crap, aimed at crowds who follow the laws of least effort with cult-like devotion. This to me is as paradoxical as quantum physics in 3 easy to understand steps, but with the subheading, all you need to know to lecture at Oxford in just 55 pages. It's unserious, entirely unserious, and I cannot get past that, and especially so as it is a mental virus that has come to define our age, and even worse, one that is continually rewarded too. Basically, the entire content of this book is a very brief introduction of how waves move, as in motive and corrective phases, the respective rules, and then a by the way type of explanation of how you can apply them with the help of fib levels and the RSI. And that's pretty much it. This book is the airiest read I've committed to thus far. The level is simple, which in all fairness was what I was looking for. However, as simple as it may be, it's so surface level and shallow that even if you were to faint heads down in this little baby pool of information, you'd still not drown. Sure, it does go into triangles and complex corrections and the alike, but the explanations more often than not leaves you with more questions than you started off with. Sure, you'll learn the basics. However, a well-made 5-minute YouTube video would cover everything this book has to offer. Or shall we rather call it for what it really is, a pamphlet.
But let's cut the crap, you know.
It's not so much as a book as a pamphlet, you know? Kind of on the thin side, isn't it?
Based on the table of content, this book consists of 75 unnumbered pages, and personally, I freaking hate books with unnumbered pages. Yet the actual number is 70 as it starts on page 5. And this on its own is fine, as I knew in advance that it'd be a short read when I first ordered it on Amazon. Yet when the book was delivered, the first thing that struck me was how utterly unprofessionally looking this piece is. And then it dawned on me that it's an Amazon production, as imprinted by Amazon. I wasn't aware at the time that Amazon had a publishing house of its own, and apparently they do both copies of classics and so on, but it's also a self-publishing platform for people who get rejected elsewhere. Just like people who are not talented enough end up having a YouTube channel. And this work sure qualifies for one of those rejects. The level of unseriousness and unprofessionalism is further underlined by the frequently recurring spelling and grammar mistakes. I might be overly sensitive to poor grammar myself, yet to me, poor grammar, and poor basic grammar in particular, speaks of poor education. So why on earth then would I trust anything someone has to say if they haven't even bothered to learn basic elementary school writing rules? If they're too arrogant to learn what every 10-year-old ought to know, how could they possibly expect to be taken seriously when it comes to anything that requires any level of intellect? In this sense, I've never understood people who say that the most important thing is that you understand what they are trying to communicate. This to me is as ridiculous as saying that the most important thing is to get from point A to B when referring to a vehicle. Will those same people reason the same way after a 10-hour drive in a car with uneven wheels? I think not. And by the same token, good grammar is a courtesy to maintain the reader's flow and rhythm. And to anyone with a basic level of grammar, poor grammars make you brutally aware of every pothole in the road. It slows down your reading and ends up consuming unnecessarily much energy, as one too many things need to be decoded. This book was an info travel with slightly elliptical wheels. It sure wasn't a comfortable ride, and I'll rather walk back home to Sweden than have to read anything else by the same publisher or author. But here's where things take a turn for the comical. This book, which very obviously hasn't gone through any of the traditional publishing stages of editors and so on, immediately gives you the feeling of an afternoon writing ambition for some info website no one visits. Then you get the last page where it says, marked in blue, "Click here to leave your review." I clicked and nothing happened. This to me is the epitome of laziness, publishing a book without even bothering to skim it through first for embarrassing mistakes like this, not to mention the frequently recurring spelling and grammar fuck-ups. Let me be clear, I will never, ever buy any books from Amazon's own publisher ever again. In all fairness, this attempt at a book kind of gets the job done. However, it's the meal that leaves you unfulfilled, still hungry and bored out of your mind from your dinner companion. Like eating a bag of overboiled broccoli together with a snotty and disengaged teenager. It does quench your hunger, but leaves you feeling like you wasted a precious appetite. And neither does it make you ever want to have broccoli again, no matter how good it may be for you. Despite a lot of things to remark on, there are worse books out there, but maybe not necessarily worse trading books. Yet its inspirational level is near zero. For a drier piece on educational trading, you need to search actively for, and I've stared through my fair share of drying paint already. I'm not even gonna link to this pamphlet of a book for you to buy it, for I wouldn't suggest anyone to waste their time and money. For all in all, the effective market should reject this lazy piece of slime back to the swamp where it belongs and have someone drive it there on elliptical wheels. Grade 3.0, you're welcome. That was all for now. Thank you and goodbye.